Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Peace and Plenty in 20. I'm your host, Janine Deramo, transformational coach for women, and your weekly lifeline for navigating midlife with grace, goals, and grit. I am so excited about my guest today. I am very thrilled to introduce Emily Sadri, a double board certified women's health nurse practitioner and certified nurse midwife who graduated from UPenn. And after a decade, I believe, in conventional medicine, Emily became frustrated with the limitations of insurance-based care and founded Aurelia. Am I saying that right?
Aurelia.
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 A practice built on the principle that transformational healthcare starts with strong relationships and longer appointments. As a mom of four who's navigating the same challenges as all of you listening and to the women that she serves, Emily is passionate about rejecting the idea that a woman's worth comes from her productivity and believes that women can have it all when they have someone truly standing beside them in their healthcare journey. What an intro. And I personally can vouch for the truth and the validity behind all of those statements because I myself am a patient of Emily's and it has been life-changing. So, with all of that, welcome, Emily.
Thank you so much for having me, Janine. It's such a pleasure to be with you and just to be able to hang out and kind of chat for a little bit. I love these blips in my week to just connect.
Yes, and connection is very important. Also, as you can hear, we are both very busy moms, and many of you listening also have all of this going on. For example, I was just telling Emily, I started to get a little stressed because I was not in my office this morning. I have the dog growling now, but part of my personal work has been letting go and giving myself permission. And that's a great segue to how I came to Emily because I decided it was finally time for me to invest in myself, in my health, give myself that permission. And I know many of you, not just my clients, but the many women listening have been dismissed by doctors, have been dismissed and disappointed by diet culture. So, Emily, I want to just dive right in with to all of those women listening that have gone through this experience of whether it's wanting to lose weight, the hormonal changes, when they go and see their doctors, I've heard so many things said, like it's just part of getting older, it's normal, your labs are normal, you're just anxious or depressed. Here's some Lexapro. Let's try birth control. You're too young for menopause. So, all of those statements, Emily, I know that this is something you're so passionate about. When you hear those kinds of statements from your patients, what is your response?
Well, first of all, I would say that it's not you, it's them. The system was built the way that it is, and it takes a really long time for things to change. So even though there may be more widespread awareness of perimenopause and hormonal changes on Instagram or TikTok, it takes a really long time for that to make its way back to actual practice. And many of the docs that are out there practicing were trained 5 to 10 years ago at minimum, right? If not significantly longer. And so a lot of them actually, it may even be the possibility that some of the much older practitioners, like I have some OBGYN friends here, and one of my favorites is a man in his 70s who's like, well, yeah, it was a total mistake when we started taking women off of estrogen, right? Like he has more perspective because he's been around for a long time. But most of the providers, if you were trained or were a new doc anytime in the early 2000s, really, and then going up until maybe 5 years ago, the prevailing belief was that hormones weren't safe. You should only use them when absolutely necessary if someone has intolerable hot flashes. That was what I was taught at Penn. That was what all of my colleagues were taught. And so if you learn that something is basically 100% bad and only to use it when absolutely necessary, especially as a midwife, I left school like I'm gonna do black cohosh and I'm gonna do I'm gonna do all these things.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna prescribe hormones. And I'm going to do my due diligence, and I'm going to send them for, I'm going to get their cholesterol screen. I'm going to give them a mammogram. I'm going to get them a colonoscopy. I'm going to do all the things and put them on baby aspirin. I'm going to, prescribe them SSRIs because I was taught SSRIs. So like Lexapro antidepressants are a safer first line treatment for perimenopause and menopause than hormones. That's what we were taught. Right. And that was like what we were even tested on our board exams. So the system has been entrenched in brokenness for so long that that's what you're going to hear. One of the primary, I think, issues is that we're really not taught to see women's health through the lens of hormones and hormone function. We're kind of like, we have this very masculine kind of model of healthcare. And then for women, the adjustment, right, instead of it having its own model, it's more like it's an adjusted model, is really just make sure you screen extra for heart disease, make sure you screen extra, yada, yada. But there's nothing from a real proactive perspective that's really different in the model. Or if you think about like your experience of healthcare, it's like I've had a pap smear, I get it. Like you get all these things that are screening tools, but there's never really this conversation of like, okay, so now that you're done having children, right? We were taught now that you're done having children, what's your method of birth control? Because like there's nothing more tragic than an accidental pregnancy. And while there are elements that are true, like yes, someone who's really unhealthy, who has an accidental pregnancy, like it's, a massive upset for their personal life and potentially even for their health. Yes. However, a lot of women feel pretty well equipped to prevent a pregnancy, especially after they've had a few children, right? They're potentially in a committed relationship. What they don't feel equipped to deal with is their changing level of resilience. They don't feel equipped to understand or to deal with the fact that they haven't changed their diet or exercise for the last 10 years and all of a sudden they're putting on weight. These are the things that people really want help with. And coincidentally, they're also the things that are part of the pathway to chronic disease. So in traditional medicine, we're very preoccupied with what we call chronic disease prevention, which is really just chronic disease screening. That's really all that it is. There's very little actual prevention put in place, but that's what women actually want. And I think, women are so intuitive, and especially after we've kind of gone through our childbearing times. And I would say this applies to women who didn't have children as well. Like as we age and we become wiser and we become more attuned to our intuition, we know when something is like not right. And we know that it doesn't feel good to just be offered birth control or antidepressants. It seems like everyone knows what's going on if you're looking through your little narrow window of like what your algorithm on social media is feeding you. But the reality is that the majority of practitioners out there are so busy seeing 20 to 30 patients a day, worrying about their billing and they're closing their charts, that they're just, and hospital systems are not investing in their ongoing education related to perimenopause and menopausal health. So it's not you. It's a very broken system, and you really have to be extremely proactive about seeking out the person who is really in alignment with your goals. Like, I am not for everyone. My practice is not for everyone. I say all the time, like, if you're the person who wants sort of simple and you really want to do like what all the medical journals sort of agree on, that they've finally gotten there, like, we're not the right fit for you, because we're really looking to do like go beyond that and really looking to sort of meld functional and integrative medicine with like precision hormone science, so that you're getting a very individualized plan that requires testing, that really does believe that like what your blood is showing is important. And that's very much in the minority in terms of practice styles. But I really think that there is someone out there for everyone. And that the first thing people should experience is like a feeling of safety and being listened to. So that's like number one, right, on your list. It's like, do I feel validated, listened to, or do I feel like very subtly gaslit? And not because the person is trying to be manipulative, but because they just can't, they have no framework for how to cope with what you're bringing to the table. That would be step one. And then after that, it's really like, what are your goals? If you're someone who's always been interested in health and you've always been interested in doing the right thing, and I also like to think that we attract people who are also interested in not suffering. So I'm like not big on suffering. Like, I am not one of those health coaches that's like always been like a 19 BMI and been like,
Right.
I don't understand why you just can't get it together. Like, that is not me. I like life. I like to enjoy things. I think balance is so important. So, we tend to attract people that are looking for that same kind of rich experience in life with balance and with optimization. And those are the people that we can really get to work with, right? And we meet each other halfway. Like your plan may look completely differently from someone whose labs were quite similar, but just has a completely different life and a different goal, right?
Yep. And that's exactly why I got on a plane and flew to Cleveland because honestly, I had not been able to find through, our conversations prior to me coming and committing, there's so much more involved. Like it's so holistic. Like the first thing you said, like you have to feel safe and you have to feel seen and heard. And I've gone back and forth with you with my own, issues with eating and my own like I have a lot of
Mhm.
my own, mental stuff, emotional stuff. And it's so important to find someone that understands that and also has the cutting edge knowledge and research. And that's very hard, to find. It's very hard to find that combination. But I think that that's the key for anybody that wants to make lasting change. I think it is a key point to find someone that is looking at you as the whole person. For my women that are listening and whether they're in New Jersey or other places, what should they be asking for, looking for?
So I would say that, what we really try to do at Aurelia is sort of blend the best of like functional health coaching and lifestyle, meaning that we focus on things like circadian rhythm, stress, protein and fiber, sleep, having clean sources of water and food, and like really the foundations that for 80 to 90% of women are the thing that they need to move the needle in addition to advanced hormone science. I would say if you can't find that, and you really want good hormone assessment and treatment. So that's what my practice really does. I would say if you can't find that, and you really want good hormone assessment and treatment, I would go to women'shormonenetwork.org. That is where you could get, those are really providers. The people that are listed on there are, have worked with a certain number of people doing really precision hormone science. So they can do tailored dosing. They're going to be much more specific versus a more traditional menopause society approach, which is also fine for some people if you're just interested in symptom relief and maybe chronic disease risk reduction. You could always go to menopause.org and find sort of a traditional person. So I'd say get your hands, in with someone who really resonates with you in terms of being a medical provider, because if you're in perimenopause or menopause, you do need your thyroid tested, you need your hormones checked, and you want to find someone who's going to do all of those things. So again, I would tell you to lean on your intuition. Find someone else who's had good results. Like you've had good results. I'm sure you tell people about us. Like find someone in your life who's got a lot of good stuff going for them that you feel safe with, and ask them. Like women are the best referrers ever. I would also just say throw out the belief that it's only your mindset that needs an upgrade. I think that's the part. Like women at this age are so used to taking responsibility for everything. We've already carried the burden for many years, probably of children and careers. And we've kind of gotten through by saying, like, by seeing how, like, by us taking responsibility, change happens and change occurs. And yes, there have been many moments where we do need to work on our mindset. But if you are living in a space where your mental sort of stuff is not supporting your goals, I promise you that it is not just your mindset that needs an upgrade. Like there's a real biochemical changes that happen with estrogen decline. Serotonin is affected, dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. Like one of the biggest crimes against women that we commit in healthcare worldwide is the fact that we don't work up new onset or worsening mental health issues for women over 40 as first being potentially hormone in nature, hormone in origin. And I just really would like, if that's one thing you take away from this talk, is that if you're experiencing a challenge to your mental health, stop like blaming yourself.
Can you test for hormones and can you test and say yes, you're in menopause or perimenopause? Time out real quick. Correct me if I'm wrong. Menopause is literally when you've had not had a period for 1 year, right?
Right, which how many women can't even like meet that qualification because they had an ablation or a hysterectomy or they have an IUD in place or
Exactly.
right. So it's a useless marker to me. I think that what we instead need to be doing is looking at hormone sufficiency. To answer your question, there's not one test that we can say like you're in perimenopause.
Right.
There you can look at a pituitary hormones, your follicle stimulating hormone and your luteinizing hormone, FSH and LH, and those will commonly be run, and they may be extremely elevated if you're menopausal.
Mhm.
But they also may be perfectly normal, and you may be very perimenopausal, right? Just depending on kind of when you test it and many things. It's a feedback loop. They're brain hormones, they're not ovarian hormones. They're really just testing their response to what's going on in the body. So it's not reliable. So we do a variety of tests on, sort of a week before an expected period in someone who's still getting a cycle, or at a random time for someone who either has very irregular cycles or doesn't get a cycle. And we absolutely know that we have to take that with a grain of salt. And so we're combining that information with the information that they're telling us, but we're also looking at more than just hormones. We are looking at the thyroid. We are looking at lots of metabolic markers, specifically inflammatory markers, and lots of very specific lipid markers, because sometimes those things will show perimenopause before your hormone levels do. We also really like to use a urine monitoring system. There's two types that you can just get right over the counter. One is called the Inido,
That's
and
what
one
I'm
is called,
using right now.
yeah,
It is so cool. Side
it's
note,
so cool.
that you told me
Yeah,
about it, because I'm literally, I don't mean to interrupt you. That's
no, you're good.
my ADHD. I
Yeah,
I I have been, so now, because I do track my symptoms, because I want to optimize how I'm feeling and pay attention to this, which is something else I think women need to
yeah,
do, is like write down what you're feeling when, what
100%.
week of the month. So now, like, matching that to how I'm feeling has been very, very interesting and just helpful for me too. And even the weeks that I'm going to be more productive or film episodes.
I find it, to your point, exactly what you were saying, so helpful for women to go, oh, there's a correlation. When my estrogen comes up as 19, I feel like I'm crawling out of my skin and like I'm totally hopeless. And it's like, that's not you, right? That's not because your brain is broken. That's not because there's anything wrong with you. Like you're literally, you've taken all of the fuel that your brain needs to function and it's gone for
Yep,
this day, right? Something, whatever's going on, like see that correlation. And then it helps women to really, feel normalized, but also it helps us to treat you.
that's right.
And they're not perfect tests, but like
No,
there's nothing perfect. But we always, like, if I was going to wait till I had perfect everything, my practice would be very boring, would be very innovative, and I would get very boring results.
yeah,
Taking this testing into account when we're looking at the whole picture is really helpful. We've really found that it's transformed our ability to tailor and customize treatment. And ultimately, the most important thing for me is that we've upgraded the patient experience, that they feel like this is not just I've gotten this great plan and I'm still in this passive receivership position. It's like that you are empowered and that like you're coming to the table with all this information. And my even deeper mission than that is like, now this is going to change the way that you mother your daughters, the way that you talk to your friends. Like you change one woman's life and it changes 100 women's lives, right?
yeah.
So I just think if anyone's ever discouraging you from getting more data, it's because they don't know what to do with the data. And so they're sort of discouraging you or poo-pooing you. I don't know, but data's power. As long as you understand that nothing is perfect.
And I agree with you, and having that data, I think that's so important too for women to understand that no, it's not a perfect science, but that's why we pull from a lot of different types of data. Like I was just saying to you, like you anecdotally write down what's going on with you, but also let's do this testing. Also, let's talk about what's going on in here and some of the beliefs maybe that need to be shifted. There's so many aspects, and I think it's important. I love that you said, like, I feel empowered on this journey. I do. I feel like I can say to you or to Gretchen, I say, here's what's going on with me, and this is what I feel. Let's try this. We've done this, right? We've gone back and forth, and that I think, and trusting your intuition are so important, and just something that, like you said, in traditional medicine just has not been the way. It's just, here, I'm going to hand you this script, and it's just such a totally different model. And to your point, it's going to take a long time to dismantle, but the work that you are doing um, has been life changing for me. And please, please, please keep me posted
I will.
when New Jersey is on board. But like you said, New York, Connecticut. So in the show notes, I'm going to put links to everything. for you guys to check out Emily's work. I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for me personally and also for coming on and chatting with me.
Such a pleasure, Janine. I'm so proud of you and your journey and
So,
appreciate, you are one of those super connecting, super referring types of women. And it always makes me so excited when we get new patients like you because I just know that you're going to shine your light so big and more people are going to understand, sort of what we do and that there's just a better way.
absolutely, and there sure is.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Emily. And we will talk soon. And to the rest of you listening or watching, come back next week. New episodes drop every Wednesday. And again, I am Janine Deramo, a transformational life coach, and thank you for tuning in to Peace and Plenty in 20. Bye.